So this is the edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast at 23:25 hours GMT on Thursday, 17th of August 2023. This is part B. And the general theme is the Baby Angel Geronimo editions. Baby Angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby angel Geronimo. And all the people that love him are absolutely doing so. They love him unconditionally on the ethical, moral, spiritual goodness that baby angel Geronimo represents is personified by, as opposed to the criminals, the evilness personified by the likes of the congenital liar Boris Johnson, the evilness Christian Middleness at the DEFRA, the evilness that was installed in the DEFRA until he was shifted, resulting from the corrupt goings on. So the baby angel Geronimo is the leading witness and auditor, observer, commentator on a daily basis, on a regular basis, providing fact-based, unique commentary, consistent with the testimony collected by the two angels on each shoulder of every human being. Baby angel Geronimo is especially able to access the truth because baby angel Geronimo is personification of truth, benevolence, compassion, love, care, and concern. So the baby angel Geronimo is the banner, the bestest banner that we could think of, under which the Khoodeelaar television program is broadcast, and it is a program dedicated to the cause of telling the truth, upholding the truth, representing nothing but the truth, in accordance with the promise in the Holy Quran, in the Surah Al Isra. Innal batila kana zahuqa. Innal batila kana zahuqa. So this is a daily, more than once, depending on how many separate editions actually broadcast each day. The baby angel Geronimo was observed by the people during the coverage in Fleet Street this month, during month 2021, August 2021. Because that was when the latest stoogery role was being played by one of the divisional courts. The divisional courts that sat during August 2021 was chaired by a man called Mr. Justice Murray. Let's see if we got this right. Mr. Justice Murray. I have seen the contents of the inside of the head, the brain, and the inside of the mind of too many Mr. Justices and Lady Justices, etc., in the United Kingdom in London. And I can confirm based on the evidence, nothing but based on the evidence, that these are allowed a kind of particular entitlement. Now, why was he born in Washington? So he became a divisional judge, divisional high court judge on the 1st of October 2018. So let's see. He was born in 19. He was born in 1958. In May 1958. He was born in Washington, whatever reason. And he, so far, on the records, he has been the latest one, the third one that can be called, described as a high court judge, that sat in a pretense role, sat to play the stooge part assigned to him by the DEFRA and other criminals operating as the UK executive, the government. So let's check the details there. Is remember, we are talking about baby angel Geronimo. Remember also that these contents are going to be used. These are original world exclusive contents that we are broadcasting and publishing. So, baby angel Geronimo's human mom, Helen MacDonald, had this case against Animal Plant and Health Agency. And Griffiths, sorry, this is not Mare, this is the one. The Griffiths was the one that sat there and on 29th of July. We shall check on the numbers of hearings and get the full list of the actual judges. So this one was in 2021, and the hearing date was 29th of July 2021. And this is an appeal by way of case stated against the decision of district judge, that is magistrates court, Leighton on 4th of May 2021, sitting at Bristol Magistrates Court to grant a warrant. Now, the rest of the contents of the warrant I am not going to read because it was to do with murdering baby angel Geronimo. The reason why we withdraw some of the words and phrases is because of the severe traumatizing impact these references would have. What we have found in the history of the so-called English judiciary is that, contrary to the myths paraded by the Fleet Street and other criminal vehicles of propaganda, brainwashing, the English judiciary is corrupt to the core, criminal to the core, unjust to the core. So if suppose the day of judgment in the framework of the Holy Quran, the day of judgment, if the day of judgment had not been provided for and promised, then that kind of provision would have to be made in order to establish the guilt of the criminals who perpetrate the crimes while in an office of power. So if let's say the planet Earth, if there were no country described as a country, if there were no country described as a country with the so-called judicial wing, then what would happen? So Rwanda. Topically, Rwanda is a word that actually sums up the 1994 genocide. And it invokes, it reminds people of the lack of justice, fairness, compassion, and the basest possible cruelty, criminality, which is why the word Rwanda invokes such a genuinely strong response. So, Rwanda, what they did? What did they do in Rwanda? Let's look at the Rwanda description. So the question is, we want to know, what did the genocide perpetrators, when they carried out the genocide, what did they do to the victims? Most of the victims were killed in their own villages or in towns, often by their neighbors and fellow villagers. Read that again. Most of the victims were killed in their own villages or in towns, often by their neighbors and fellow villagers. The militia typically murdered victims with machetes, although some army units used rifles. The Hutu gangs searched out victims hiding in churches and school buildings and massacred them. Throughout this throughout the colonial era, the minority Tutsi, 14%, were favored over the Hutus, 85%. They were given privileges and Western style education, while the Hutus were the oppressed masses. In 1959, the Hutus rebelled against the Belgian colonial power, Belgian meaning Belgium, and the Tutsi elite, forcing some 150,000 Tutsis to flee to the country called Burundi. And if you look at the map of these various countries in Africa, you see the European countries are looting the whole continent. And look at this. This is dated 1884, 15th of November 1884. This is a document. And the document is headed Rwanda is assigned to Germany, 1884, as part of German East Africa. How could this East Africa be German? At the 1884 Berlin Conference, the territory of Rwanda and coming from all the way from the 17th century and so on. And what the 1994 genocide was about was continuing the war that was foisted, created, the social war created on the society by the imperialists. The imperialists interfered with any rational, logical, ethical movement towards creating a just, fair, compassionate society. So the 1994 genocide was one expression Let's read a summary of that one. 6th of April 1994. More than 1 million people are estimated to have perished, and an estimated 150,000 to 250,000 women were also raped. Think about that. On 6th of April 1994, the deaths of the presidents of Burundi and Rwanda in a plane crash caused by a rocket attack ignited several weeks of intense and systematic massacres. The killings, more than 1 million people are estimated to have perished, shocked the international community and were clearly acts of genocide. This is, I'm reading from a web online article on the United Nations website. An estimated 150,000 to 250,000 women were also raped. Members of the Presidential Guard started killing Tutsi civilians in a section of Kigali near the airport. Less than half an hour after the plane crash, roadblocks manned by Hutu militants, I'll read that again. Less than half an hour after the plane crash, that was in April 1994, roadblocks manned by Hutu militiamen, often assisted by paramilitary police or military personnel, were set up to identify Tutsis. Then on 7th of April, the day after, radio television Libre des Mille RTLM aired a broadcast attributing the plane crash to the RPF and a contingent of the United Nations soldiers, as well as incitements to eliminate the Tutsi cockroach. Later that day, the Prime Minister, Agatha Anwillingham, well, would be a difficult pronunciation, Agatha Uwilingimana, and 10 Belgian peacekeepers assigned to protect her were brutally murdered by Rwandan government soldiers in an attack on her home. Other moderate Hutu leaders were similarly assassinated. After the massacre of its troops, Belgium withdrew the rest of its force. And then 2 weeks later, 27th of April, by some of the Rwandan parties was one, the tragedy was compounded by the faltering response of the international community to reduce human suffering in Rwanda was severely constrained by the unwillingness of member states to respond to changed circumstances in Rwanda by strengthening even AMIR's mandate and contributing additional troops. So, what this is just a sample, absolute sample, and which is what part of the narrative that I have been broadcasting about the United Nations organization. is this: that although the United Nations organization was founded in late 1940s, it has never been allowed to function. And this is comparable to the administrative kind of dysfunction that has been built into the likes of the United Kingdom National Health Service. Although it was founded in the late 1940s, the UK's National Health Service has never been allowed to function. Loves the UK's National Health Service more than any other party. The truth is that the Labour Party is was that the United Nations bureaucracy was very much part of the complicity with the various moves, various steps where they were underway. I mean, that would trigger the massacre, the genocide, the rapes. And the United Nations bureaucracy failed, was unfit for purpose. Now that was 1994, and today it is nearly 30 years, and the United Nations has remained unfit for purpose. So, if the United Kingdom internally has any administrative constitutional methods to make sure that fairness and compassion are actually discharged by the decision makers, if there were such a thing, then what they did by staging the serial lies by the High Court, parading the High Court sittings as judicial sittings, examining the evidence about the particular rights of baby angel Geronimo. To this day, there is no evidence that the DEFRA or the individuals making the decision, especially the likes of Christian Middlemas, the evilness, had any evidence against baby angel Geronimo. And that there are and there have been international treaties, while all the failings and unfitness for purpose in Rwanda, about Rwanda, have been going on, Rwanda and other countries, including the United Kingdom, have been signing treaties and declarations that on paper suggest that these signatory states would uphold standards of accountability and justice and fairness and compassion that would ensure the protection of the innocent, justice for the innocent, fairness for the innocent. And in the context of this narrative, no one has been more entitled to receive justice, receive fairness, receive protection than baby angel Geronimo. Which is why we cannot actually discuss the details of what happened every stage against baby angel Geronimo's rights. We cannot do that in one edition. We are doing it in every edition. So bear with us and come back and watch and observe. Baby angel Geronimo is the world's bestest baby angel Geronimo. As for our part, we love the baby angel Geronimo in the most sincere, complete sense, unconditional sense that we could love a being. And baby angel Geronimo is nearest thing that we can kind of compare to a living, breathing person. As we speak his name, we imagine baby angel Geronimo near us and we send him the bestest wishes and bestest hugs that we could imagine. And we shall be continuing to speak with him, speak for him, and set the evidence on the record in a way that nobody can deny. And the lessons of baby angel Geronimo's innocence are going to remain unique, powerful in a way that has not been seen in the actual advocacy of rights by any being. The baby angel Geronimo was born in New Zealand, and an experienced woman who is very well experienced in raising alpacas, the family to which baby angel Geronimo belongs, raised him. And baby angel Geronimo was well raised, and he was invited to join this woman, Helen MacDonald, in South Gloucestershire, in England. Like Leonie Walker in New Zealand, Helen MacDonald, too, is a very experienced carer of alpacas. So we shall return to this baby angel Geronimo narrative as and when relevant. Now let's check what other items are doing the rounds. Well, there is, of course, this two racist brainwashers doing the rounds. One is the passing of the racist Michael Parkinson, and the shockingly apartheid group pictures of these white women called the Lionesses. Now, Parkinson is being depicted in the media front pages for Friday, the 18th of August 2023, in a dishonest way that is offensive beyond belief. Because although I personally, as a Muslim, cannot say that any human being, including the Prophet, could be called the greatest. The objective, the word greatest only belongs to the ultimate creator, the God. But in the publicity statements that Muhammad Ali, the wrestler, issued, he became known for saying that he was the greatest. I disagree with that, and quite a few other people who disagree. But the fact is, objectively, that it was him who said he was the greatest. And yet, the Fleet Street papers on Friday are adding insult to the injury by saying that the original greatest was Michael Parkinson, and they are saying, as a consequence, Muhammad Ali was also the greatest, as if the genuine greatest was Michael Parkinson and a subsidiary greatest, depending on the permission of Michael Parkinson, was the original Muhammad Ali. So we shall be talking about all of those in due course more later. Suffice to say that the supporter in Britain, one of the sick making supporters in Britain, Piers Moran, of course, is saying that Michael Parkinson was the greatest. Now, when somebody like Piers Moran says somebody was the greatest, that really undermines the case significantly. And so, therefore, once Piers Moran has declared Michael Parkinson as the greatest, then it cannot be repeated. With a straight face. So this character called Dickie Bird is being shown on Sky News as having broken down as he was paying tributes to Michael Parkinson. In the Daily Mirror front page. The Rupert Murdoch organ, the scum, has the biggest letters in which it writes the greatest. And then in much smaller letters it says, and so was Muhammad Ali. How dare they? There was nothing. There was nothing in his so called 50 years of career on television as an interviewer. There was nothing, absolutely nothing that Parkinson did that can be described in the language of the profession, the breaking story. He didn't break a breaking story, let's say. So Michael Parkinson was not the greatest anything, because if you look at the contents of the same Fleet Street paying tributes to George All Agate, also known as George Alagia, the Sri Lankan born mental slave and racist slave who passed away 2 weeks ago, you can see that there is actually no room for any evidence. There is no room for any morality to be inserted in these tributes. These tributes rushed in, pouring in. So it's like a routine series of tributes. There is no requirement for either George Alagate or Michael Parkinson to be measured by citing any real, objectively verifiable incident of their achievement. Let's say, for example, this picture that they are using about Parkinson, so called, and interviewing Muhammad Ali. Imagine there was no such picture of Muhammad Ali appearing on Michael Parkinson's program. What kind of star themselves by abusing the fact and the reputation of Muhammad Ali in claiming that it was Parkinson who was the greatest. So that is the kind of corruption, dishonesty, and criminality that is going on. And we shall come back to this in due course, of course. Now, moving to the women in Australia, the Lionesses, with the pictures that are being run by Fleet Street after these English women called the Lionesses defeated the Australians. The picture is absolutely unbelievable. It's an apartheid picture of what looks like, almost, it looks like, it could be artificially arranged, but It looks like all blonde, not only white but blonde whites. I mean, even Hitler could not imagine such a perfect blonde team. Think about that. There is no contest. The whole world has been completely scrapped again all over. So we shall be continuing on all these in due course later. This is ending at 5 minutes, this particular edition.